You never notice the moment your life starts to drift. It happens quietly, slowly, in the background while you're busy chasing someone who was never chasing you back. And by the time you realize it, you're already bending, shrinking, adjusting yourself into shapes that don't even look like you anymore. That's how men lose themselves, one small compromise at a time. Not with a disaster, not with an explosion, but with a soft, silent surrender they don't even feel happening. Every man has a moment where he wakes up and asks himself a brutal question: how did I end up here? And it's never about a job, never about money. It's always about a woman he gave too much of himself to, a woman he tried to prove himself to, a woman he believed would finally see his value if he just tried harder, waited longer, invested deeper. But the truth hits hard. You don't earn love by sacrificing your self-respect. You don't gain connection by losing yourself. This chapter starts with that moment. That crack in your chest where disappointment finally becomes clarity. Where the silence around you stops feeling empty and starts feeling honest. You realize you weren't rejected. You were redirected. You were being pushed back into your own life, into the version of you that didn't need anyone's approval to feel grounded. Because the truth is, the moment you chase someone's validation, you stop living your own story and start living inside theirs. And that's where everything starts to break. You stop hearing your own voice. You stop feeling your own instincts. You stop trusting the man you're supposed to be. But the beautiful thing, the powerful thing, is that a man can wake up from this. He can snap out of the trance. All it takes is one realization: I'm done. I'm done begging. I'm done explaining. I'm done proving anything to anyone. That's the spark. Because once a man finally becomes tired of disrespect, tired of confusion, tired of being treated like an option, he becomes unstoppable. Not loud, not aggressive, not dramatic, just done. And nothing is more powerful than a man who is quietly done. That is where your transformation starts, not in confidence, not in strength, not in some motivational high, but in exhaustion. In reaching the point where your soul refuses to carry another ounce of humiliation. That's the moment your backbone resets. That's the moment your standards rise. That's the moment you start becoming the man you were always supposed to be. You don't need her attention. You don't need her approval. You don't need her recognition. What you need is you. And the second you return to yourself, the world starts reacting differently. Your energy shifts. Your presence sharpens. Your mind clears. You stop chasing and start choosing. And that's when everything begins to change. There comes a point where you stop blaming her and start seeing the truth about yourself. Not in a weak way. Not in a self-pitying way. But in a brutally honest way, the kind of honesty men avoid because it exposes everything they've been running from. The truth is simple: you didn't lose her. You lost yourself long before she walked away. You abandoned your own standards. You watered down your identity. You traded your strength for the comfort of being chosen. And life punished you for it. People talk about heartbreak like it's something that destroys a man. But it doesn't. What destroys him is the slow erosion of his boundaries while he's still in the relationship. The breakup is just the final chapter of a story he ignored the warning signs of. And that's what this stage forces you to confront. The version of you who tolerated things you should have walked away from the moment they appeared. You start noticing the texts you shouldn't have sent. The reassurances you shouldn't have given. The disrespect you let slide because you were scared of losing her. You see all the ways you lowered your voice when you should have spoken with authority. All the moments you postponed your needs so hers could take priority. And suddenly you understand why everything fell apart. Not because you weren't enough, but because you weren't yourself. This awareness isn't comfortable. It's not supposed to be. Growth never feels good at the beginning. It's supposed to sting. It's supposed to burn. It's supposed to expose the parts of you that you've been hiding behind affection and fantasy. But that pain is the pivot. That discomfort is the reset. It's the first signal that the man you buried under fear and attachment is waking up again. And when he wakes up, everything shifts. You start detaching from who you were. You stop caring about things that used to control you. You realize that your worth never depended on her reaction, her mood, or her consistency. Your value was always internal. You just forgot how to see it because you were too focused on being chosen instead of being respected. This is where your foundation rebuilds, quietly, privately, without needing applause. You regain your emotional balance. You recover your mental strength. You rebuild your center. And you do it without running back to her, without seeking closure, without proving anything to anyone. You begin to understand that the real win isn't getting her back. It's getting yourself back. The clarity that comes from this stage is sharp. It's direct. It's undeniable. You start acting differently. You carry yourself with a new calm. The desperation disappears. The fear dissolves. The man who was once lost in attachment becomes grounded in purpose again. And that is the version of you she never saw coming. The mirror shows up the second your presence ends. Habits she ignored turn into clear patterns. Memories rearrange into evidence. Small acts of kindness you offered without comment become proof of a steadiness she never respected. That shift forces her to face choices she once skimmed over. Guilt arrives quietly and lands in unexpected places. Idle moments, the silence after a call, the side of the bed you used to fill. Those quiet pockets used to hold your calm, now they hold absence. She starts listing the time she took rather than gave. The tally becomes a weight. At first she blames timing or circumstance. Later she stops lying to herself and admits she was careless. Excuses crumble when they meet your indifference. The apologies she avoided suddenly feel necessary, but pride still blocks their path. The mirror also shows how deliberate you were. Patience wasn't passive, it was chosen work. The energy you invested required intention, not habit. Realizing this, she recalculates what you meant to her life. She replays moments to learn, not to soothe. Late-night conversations become lessons. Your steady presence stops being background noise and becomes a benchmark. She studies how you steadied her without losing yourself and understands those qualities are rare. Self-awareness is brutal and immediate. It strips away comfort and leaves a raw truth. Without your buffer she feels exposed. The confidence she relied on had been propped up by your attention. Remove that prop and the whole structure trembles. Defenses fracture in stages. First she laughs it off. Then small behaviors betray the strain. Sudden neediness, oversharing to feel seen, defensiveness wrapped in sarcasm. Friends misread the symptoms as drama. She knows different. Comparison becomes corrosive. Dates feel thin. Conversations feel rehearsed. The men she meets lack the steadiness she once took for granted. That gap gnaws at her pride and forces questions she avoided before. This chapter is an education, harsh but clarifying. She learns where she let comfort erode standards and how privilege masked responsibility. The mirror exposes the cost of taking someone for granted. But seeing isn't just punishment, it's possibility. Guilt can sharpen intention. If she owns the truth, patterns can change. She can accept responsibility, repair damage, and rebuild integrity. Or she can refuse, repeat the cycle, and watch the same outcomes unfold. What separates regret from growth is agency. Pain without change becomes memory. Pain with action becomes a different future. The mirror offers a choice: learn and evolve or ignore and repeat. The path she takes will shape every future connection she tries to build. She might not show the work. Change begins privately, in honest conversations with herself and slow adjustments to behavior. Gradual shifts matter more than dramatic confessions. If she is willing to do the quiet work, future relationships will look different. If not, the mirror remains a haunting reminder of what she once had and how easily she let it slip away. Silence isn't empty for her. It's confrontational. It forces her to feel what your presence used to dissolve. When you stop reaching out, she hears the truth she spent months dodging. Not in your words, because you're not speaking, but in the space where your attention used to live. That space becomes a pressure she can't escape. She scrolls through old messages, pretending she's just curious. But she's not. She's searching for the moment the energy shifted. She wants to know when you stopped trying. When you stopped chasing. When you stopped caring more than she did. The silence becomes a timeline that exposes every mistake she tried to hide from herself. Your absence works like a spotlight. It illuminates the parts of her she avoided confronting. The laziness. The entitlement. The emotional shortcuts. The selfish decisions she brushed off as no big deal. Without your presence to soften the impact, every memory hits harder. Every moment she dismissed now echoes with weight. She starts recalling the way you listened, the way you stood firm when she spiraled, the way you calmed storms without complaining. Your consistency becomes her contrast, and the silence makes the comparison brutal. Now she sits with a truth she never thought she would face. You were the steady one. You were the anchor. You were the person she underestimated. Silence has a way of making a woman more honest than any confrontation ever could. It strips away the noise of ego. It removes the shield of defensiveness. She can't argue with a man who isn't arguing back. She can't manipulate a narrative when you aren't participating in it. So she argues with herself instead. And she always loses. She wonders if you've moved on. If someone else is getting the attention she once took for granted. If another woman is benefiting from everything she overlooked. That possibility cuts deeper than any breakup. It threatens her sense of importance. It destabilizes the comfort she assumed she had forever. The silence also makes your value sharper. Your boundaries feel clearer. Your absence feels like a verdict, one she didn't expect. It forces her to evaluate her role in the distance. She replays her own words, her tone, her reactions. She finds the disrespect she didn't see. She finds the moments you pulled back but stayed patient. She finds the cracks she ignored until they became fractures. She starts remembering your kindness in detail. The small gestures she never acknowledged. The effort she brushed off as normal. The way you made her feel secure without demanding recognition. And suddenly she understands something painful. The man she thought would always be there actually had limits. And she pushed past them. Silence becomes the teacher she never asked for. It doesn't punish her. It reveals her. It forces her to face the consequences of treating something meaningful like it didn't matter. And once she sees that truth, she can't unsee it. The question that comes next haunts her. What if he doesn't come back this time? Comparison becomes a thief. It steals moments from her and replaces them with questions that have no answers. She thought variety would distract her, that a new face or a louder laugh could make the ache quieter, but the novelty wears thin the minute she measures someone else against what you offered. The men she meets feel temporary, like props in a rehearsal where she still plays the lead role. Conversation now feels tactical, filtered through a mental checklist measuring warmth, patience, proof of consistency. She scans for signals that match the quiet steadiness she once took for granted and rarely finds them. She hunts for proof of his flaws to soothe the sting, and every flaw magnifies the void your steadiness left behind. Dates that promised escape emphasize absence. Attentive gestures feel staged because they lack the history that made yours real. New attention fizzles when it fails to replace the security you provided. That gap does not close, it grows. Envy arrives dressed as evaluation. Instead of learning, she tallies. Instead of healing, she judges. Instead of honoring what she had, she inventories mistakes until memory becomes a manual of regret. Comparison distorts perception and builds resentment like a slow rust. She expects every man to match an impossible standard, an echo of what she once ignored. Social media pours gasoline on the problem. She scrolls through images of men living lives she assumes you built and imagines them receiving the results of what she lost. Curated scenes turn into imagined betrayals. Each invented story digs the comparison deeper and makes solitude louder. Advice from friends sounds well-meaning but thin. Go out more, they say. Meet someone new. Their remedies are quick fixes that skip the hard inner work. She tries action over reflection because movement masks pain, but activity cannot replace truth. Surface solutions fail to touch the place where you steadied her heart. Comparison rewires language about love. It turns affection into accounting. Balances, debts, and tallies replace tenderness in her thinking. She frames connection as a contest to be won or lost instead of a shared space to steward. That accounting mentality corrodes the memory of what you gave freely. The worst part is the lesson she learns too late. Attention is privilege, not entitlement. She once treated your presence as a resource she could withdraw from at will. Now she feels the sting of losing access. The realization strips comfort away and leaves a sharp awareness of consequence. Yet comparison contains a bitter mercy. Measuring what she has now against what she had can reveal the true cost of complacency. It can illuminate standards she ignored and behaviors she must change. Growth begins when she moves from tallying losses to taking responsibility. Until that shift happens, the comparison keeps her circling absence instead of facing the role she played in creating it. She may act indifferent outwardly, but privately she rehearses apologies she cannot bring herself to give, and imagines how she might have behaved differently until remorse forces quiet change. Fear shows up long before she admits it. It hides behind excuses, distractions, sudden work, sudden silence, sudden over-explaining. She feels the shift but refuses to name it. The fear isn't about losing you, it's about realizing she already has. That's the part that shakes her. Not the breakup. Not the distance. The realization that your energy no longer bends toward her the way it used to. That realization is a punch she wasn't prepared for. She used to believe she had time. She thought you would stay available, stay patient, stay invested even when she wasn't meeting you halfway. She assumed your effort was permanent. But now the dynamic is unrecognizable. You're not playing the role she assigned you. You're not giving the reassurance she used to rely on. She feels the difference in every unanswered message, every measured reply, every day you don't reach out. That uncertainty becomes a quiet panic. Your distance forces a truth she can't talk her way out of. She wonders if she miscalculated. She pushed too hard. She said something that tipped the scale. She replays conversations and searches for clues, trying to pinpoint the moment you slipped out of her emotional grip. Fear sharpens her awareness. She suddenly becomes observant in ways she never was when she had your attention. Your tone. Your timing. Your energy. She watches all of it, trying to decode intentions that used to be obvious. Every subtle shift feels like a message she can't fully interpret. Her confidence wavers. The certainty she once carried quietly unravels. She used to believe she had options lined up like a safety net. But those options don't feel like safety anymore. They feel hollow, distracting, temporary. None of them calm the anxiety that rises when she thinks about you choosing someone else. The thought terrifies her more than she'll ever admit. Fear turns into reflection. Not the deep kind fueled by growth, but the reactive kind fueled by loss. She starts asking questions she avoided when she felt secure. Why did he stop chasing? Why does he seem lighter without me? Was I the problem? Did I underestimate him? Her mind becomes a loop of possibilities, most of them uncomfortable. She imagines you with someone who respects you more than she did. Someone who values what she ignored. Someone who doesn't play games. That image digs into her pride more than any argument ever could. Fear also rearranges her behavior. She becomes careful with her words. She softens her tone. She replies quicker. She tries to hide the panic behind casual messages. But the tension leaks through. Every move she makes is driven by the possibility that she may never regain the position she once held effortlessly. That's the part that breaks her. The realization that the man she thought would always wait for her is no longer within reach. Fear shows her the truth she avoided. You were never the one who needed her. She was the one who needed you. And she never realized it until you stopped giving her the version of you she thought she owned. Fear doesn't just shake her, it reshapes her. It forces her to confront the cost of taking a man's presence lightly. And once that fear sets in, nothing feels stable anymore. Memories start arriving like unexpected callers, each one jolting her with the clarity she avoided while you were present. A smell, a song, a street corner, tiny triggers that pry open the lid she thought she closed. Flashbacks arrive without warning and leave her raw. She becomes quietly defensive where she was once carelessly bold. Small provocations flare into disproportionate reactions because the foundation she depended on is gone. People around her notice the tension before she does. They ask if she's okay, she smiles. Sleep becomes unreliable. Her brain replays the easy moments and the complicated ones with equal intensity. She wakes from small dreams with the taste of regret and the weight of what she took for granted. Routine irritations swell into major grievances. Tiny habits that used to be charms now become evidence against him in the court she silently convenes. She catalogs moments to justify her discomfort instead of using them to grow. The list grows long and it exhausts her. She practices composure in public and collapses into confusion in private. The mask works better than she expected, but the effort steals energy from everything else she does. Her friends see the competence on stage and the collapse off stage. They worry and offer platitudes that land flat. When she does try to move on, comparison sneaks in as a contaminant. Replacement relationships highlight gaps more than healing helps. She notices absence everywhere, in the ink of messages, in the cadence of laughter, in the timing of replies. New faces can't fill the specific architecture of safety you built. Conversation becomes revisionist. She rewrites the past to soothe a present that won't calm. She edits memories to preserve dignity, but those edits look thin under scrutiny. Reality and narrative drift apart until she can't be sure which one she prefers. Small decisions grow heavy. Choosing where to eat feels like a referendum on past intimacy. Picking a movie becomes a survey of what she lost. Everyday choices become weighty because they remind her of having someone who cared enough to choose for her in small, steady ways. Guilt creeps up when she least expects it. Not the loud, dramatic kind that resolves into an apology, but a slow, grinding resentment toward herself for taking softness for granted. Shame tightens its grip when she remembers the way she tested patience and watched it hold anyway. She rehearses messages that never get sent and imagines outcomes she has no right to expect. Pride keeps her typing and deleting until the pattern becomes ritual. Each unsent confession deepens the silence between you. This unraveling does not announce itself as permanent. It masquerades as temporary turbulence, which makes it more dangerous. She expects to recover by will and distraction, but emotional work is quieter and slower than that. The process asks for honesty and perseverance she hasn't learned to give herself yet. Healing begins when she faces herself. Resolution doesn't arrive with a grand realization. It starts in the smallest cracks of silence, the moments when she finally stops running from her own reflection. There's no applause, no dramatic breakthrough, just an uncomfortable honesty settling into her chest. She sees herself without the filters of pride or denial. That's where change begins, not with inspiration but with surrender. She notices the old patterns first. The way she pushed away what she secretly needed. The way she treated effort like a guarantee instead of a gift. The way she tested your patience because she assumed you'd absorb it. These realizations sting, but they're clean wounds, the kind that bleed truth instead of ego. She finally admits she played a role in the distance. Not all of it, but enough. Enough to shift the entire dynamic. The apology forms inside her long before it ever reaches her lips. She practices it mentally, shaping the words with precision, then deleting them because vulnerability still terrifies her. She doesn't know if she wants forgiveness or closure. She only knows she wants to be understood. She wants you to know she didn't lose you carelessly. She just didn't know how fragile something strong can become when neglected. Her healing isn't linear. Some days she feels grounded, almost clear. Other days she slips back into the loop, replaying memories, comparing outcomes, blaming circumstance. The internal war continues, but now she fights on different terrain. She stops trying to control your reaction and focuses on her own responsibility. It's the first mature step she's taken in months. She begins rebuilding herself in quiet ways. Not for you. Not for anyone else. For herself. She sets boundaries she never enforced. She learns to communicate without weaponizing emotion. She deals with her fears instead of hiding them behind indifference. Growth shows up in the way she speaks to people, the way she chooses relationships, the way she holds herself accountable. Your silence remains part of her transformation. Not as punishment but as a mirror, a reminder that some distances exist because they're necessary. She realizes you didn't walk away to teach her a lesson. You walked away because the dynamic no longer honored you. Understanding that hurts, but it also frees her. It forces her to accept that love without effort collapses. Attention without gratitude evaporates. And a man who outgrows the story won't shrink to fit it again. Acceptance becomes her anchor. She stops expecting the past to return. She stops imagining alternate endings. She stops clinging to the version of you she once knew. Instead, she learns to appreciate what the experience showed her about herself. The flaws she must correct, the strengths she must refine, the emotional weight she must stop outsourcing to others. Resolution doesn't mean reunion. It means clarity. It means responsibility. It means she finally grows into the woman she should have been when you were still within reach. Whether she ever gets the chance to show that new version to you isn't guaranteed. But the transformation is real, and this time it's hers alone. If you found truth in these words, hit subscribe. Your growth starts now, and this channel won't let you forget the man you're becoming.